Now we are live on air. The moment Mr. Moily comes, I will quickly tell what we both are doing together next 3-4 days. No, then straight away we'll go to the program. I want Mr. Peter Rimmel will be joining by then. No, I suppose. Pankaj, unmute.
I think Pankaj is on another call.
Yeah, Mr. Peter Rimmel come just on time.
Christian Wagner is here.
Oh, right.
From
Lovely.
Germany.
Oh. You were there earlier too, no?
Hello, Herr Wagner. Welcome.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Wagner. Welcome. This is Group Captain Vijay from MMA Chennai. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, Herr Wagner.
Hello. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Moily, sir. Group Captain Vijay Kumar from MMA Chennai. It's a real privilege and honor, sir. Welcome. Let me introduce other people who have joined us. Mr. Prime Point Srinivasan has joined us, and Mr. Pankaj Madan is from Control Shifting, and Mr. Satyamurthy is from ORF. They're all there with us. We'll comment the program another 1 or 2 minutes, actually, sir.
Yeah.
We are indeed honored and privileged by your presence, and we are all looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you.
I am not.
Group Captain, this is Bhavnesh here. Hello to you.
Hi, Mr. Bhavnesh. Good evening. Welcome on board. Lovely having you with us.
Thank you.
Light is there.
Shankar, you can go for full screen to me, actually. This, yeah, you can remove this banner so that I want to see some of the people will be joining us just now. I want to recognize them, actually. Just a second. Will you do that? Yeah, that's nice. Because I was looking for Peter Rimmel. Yes, come. Good evening, Mr. Peter. Welcome. Let me also have the privilege of introducing you to Minister, our former Minister, Mr. Arsha, Mr. Veerappa Moily. Mr. Peter Rimmel is a resident representative of MMA who joined us. Now we'll start the program, sir. Briefly, I will tell about MMA activities. Thereafter, the format is Mr. Peter Rimmel will offer his opening remarks, introductory remarks on the theme, and Mr. Prime Point Srinivasan will introduce you. Thereafter, we request you to speak on the theme for 35-40 minutes of your convenience. Then we get lots of questions because this event is live on YouTube, Facebook, and also our live webinar, and also on our Zoom. So all the questions which I come, I'll read out to you, sir, so you can address the concern of the people and answer them as per your convenience. Shall we go ahead, sir? You are quite okay with it now? Shall I start the program, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very warm welcome to another edition of our MMA program. You are all aware from the time the lockdown was imposed on 25th of March, we have been giving you a live program from morning 7 o'clock till evening 7 o'clock to keep you engaged so that you don't get really interrupted and disengaged by watching so many serious issues happening around us in India and around us in the world. So every day we start with the yoga. Thereafter, we're starting with the business quiz. Then thought leaders speak in the morning. Then we have series of workshops, certificate courses for you. In the evening, we do. Now we have been sending you lots of mails and SMSs to connect you for various events. And by any chance you missed your inbox, quickly I will tell you what's happening in the next few days so that you don't miss them. Some of the programs which are lively and which have been specially curated for you by MMA in association with Control Shifting. On the 14th, that is tomorrow, we have the board's role on commitment and company sustainability and success in the current times. And we've got 3 outstanding leaders going to be speaking on this. Mr. Bajpai is a former chairman of SEBI and also former LIC chairman. And Mr. Arbakti is a chartered accountant from Mumbai. Jangu Dalal is managing director of Institute Consulting. And Ravi Purushothaman, president of Danfoss, will be talking to us. Again, 15th evening, under the Leaders Speak series, what you are going to watch just now from Mr. Veerappa Moily is Baturu Hari Mehtab, is a member of parliament, 6-time member of parliament. He's going to be talking to us on COVID-19 impact on Indian economy. This is happening on the 15th. Then on the 20th of May, again, we are having an interesting event, COVID-19 impact on commuting. We want to talk to you about how this impacted the commuting in the whole world, more in India. So personally, when we are densely populated and where so many industries, MSMEs depend on commuting as one of the fundamental requirements for them. On 21st, we are also celebrating the World Cultural Diversity Day by organizing an event on unity and diversity by Soundarya Rajesh, who will be talking to us along with Bhavani Balasubramaniam. On 23rd May, again, we have an interesting event because the evidence now clearly proves the balance sheet is not the indicator of the brand. In this regard, brand management series jointly with we are doing Equita. Is your brand asset among enough? Is it strong enough to weather the current global crisis is happening? And we have got outstanding speaker again, Mr. Suresh Narayanan, MD and Chairman of Nestle India, is going to be talking to us. This is happening on the 23rd and 29th May, again in the series under the same, let us speak, politics under next gen leaders. We are also bringing some young political leaders to come and speak. What are the growing interest is happening among the young politicians, and we got 4 politicians confirmed: Tejasvi Surya from Bangalore, BJP, and Rajiv Satwa from Member of Parliament Congress from Delhi, and also Paramasivan MLA from AADMK, and Ms. Priya, she is a Supreme Court advocate. We are all young political leaders. On 3rd of May, again an interesting event, COVID-19 impact on election reforms by former Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, will be talking to us. Now, coming to today's event under the Leaders Speak series, which will be presenting it to us just a while ago from now. We want to do something differently and bring in the top leaders, because these are difficult time. We want to think out of box and bring it to you. That's why we conceived this Leaders Speak series. And the Leaders Speak series, it has been acknowledged across the world that COVID-19 is nothing like before the 2 world wars and also all other comparative put together. So which has seriously impacted the people across the world. We need to look at closer, deeper into the serious issues, almost every aspect of societal and formation and also in public administration, to provide for the recent transition, which is critical and important for us. In this context, MMA, in association with Conrad Stifting, is organizing Leaders Speak series, where the leaders will be requested to share their insight on how India can push the boundaries, and also drive in the post-COVID world order. So that is one event which you are going to witness today. One of the outstanding parliamentarian, outstanding political leader, former Chief Minister of Karnataka. He'll be introduced shortly by Prime Point Srinivasan. Before that, I'll have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Peter Rimmel, who is a resident representative of Conrad Stifting, New Delhi. Let me ask a brief profile of Mr. Peter Rimmel, whom I will request to deliver the introductory remarks. He is currently the president representative of the Conrad Stifting, Delhi. He has a law of Freiburg University, and after a stint as a jurist, judge, lecturer, moved to a public office, head of the division of the state or Ministry of Interior, holds a number of important assignments, including anti-corruption commissioner and Republic of Indonesia. Earlier, he was the resident representative of Lebanon and director and authority on rule of law program of Conrad Stifting. May I now request Mr. Peter Rimmel to deliver his introductory remarks, please. Over to you, Mr. Peter.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Dr. Moily, esteemed participants, political administration and reform, and I think most would agree, is as broad a topic as it can get. Yet, it is an important one. The coronavirus is demonstrating the whole world just how fragile our societies are. Our political systems have to be like living organisms. They have to adapt to new technologies. They have to be inclusive to different groups in societies. They have to respond to unforeseen disasters like the coronavirus crisis. In short, there is always a need for well thought out and well implemented reforms. I repeat, well thought out and well implemented. I want to talk about the most important challenges we are facing at the moment and briefly sketch out Germany's response to them. India and Germany have a lot in common. Like here, Germany's founding fathers, among them Konrad Adenauer, after whom our foundation is named, took the lessons of history to heart and decided on a federal and decentralized structure of governance in which no one person would wield unchecked power. And another aspect of this decentralized system is the aspect of competitiveness. I dare to say that for Germany's economy, a decentralized system has worked far better than a centralized system like in neighbor countries, where major macro and even micro decisions are done by a center. So far, those institutions have stood the test of time and served Germany well. They have come to be nearly universally accepted. But as in the rest of the world, the past few years have seen social and political upheaval combined with technological advancements unheard of for the past 30 or 40 years. One of them, digitization. COVID-19 has laid one German deficiency painfully bare. For years now, Germany has grappled with digitization, and all of a sudden, COVID-19 and everything that came with it forced us to embrace it. This is not just a question for the German economy or society. This is a question of political administration. E-governance, as it turned out, is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity. If sessions of parliament cannot be held in physical terms, we are now debating changing our constitution to allow for virtual parliamentary sessions. Just imagine for a minute how outlandish such a notion would have been just a few months ago. Germany has not always been at the forefront of digital progress. In contrary to that, India has been and is far advanced. Corona has shown us that this is not a choice anymore. We have a few
Shankar, check volume.
I think I was disconnected, so I think I'm back.
Yes, please.
And what I've said last is that we have a few things to learn from other countries and especially from India. Let me also address populism. There has been much debate about the new populism of the 21st century. And we are all familiar with those names, from the US to Russia, Brazil, Turkey, and the erratic behavior they have come to personify. Around the world, charismatic leaders have rejected ideas like institutions and the rules of the game. They bring their own agenda of political reforms, reforms that seek to do away with all checks and balances on their own power and replace it with a much more archaic form of personal rule. While trust in the political system is still high, our politics have started to fray at the edges. Reform is needed before it's too late. Concerning COVID-19, I've already remarked that the coronavirus has spurred the development and acceptance of digital tools in German politics. It has also put the spotlight on German federalism. This is a debate probably not unknown to you in India. There has been dissatisfaction with certain parts of our federal system for years now, especially the fact that German states retain control over education has often been contentious. But this debate has always been the one mostly confined within the political class. With COVID-19, changed. When the pandemic hit Germany hard in mid-March, there was widespread disbelief that the Federal Minister for Health could only issue guidelines and depended on the cooperation of his colleagues in the federal states. It was feared that this would lead to 16 different sets of rules. In India, there would be 28. Some in the political sphere and in the press were actively urging the federal government to circumvent the state in this matter. Luckily, I have to say this did not happen. Earlier, I have talked about well-thought and well-implemented reforms. This would have been a case of a reform that was not well thought out. In fact, as it turned out, German federalism was able to tackle the crisis not despite of federalism, but because of it, as it allowed for regional approaches tailored to specific needs. Doing away with central state powers in the health sector would have done more harm than good in the long run. Reform always needs to be well thought out and well implemented. Let me come to administrative reforms. The World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report for 2019 came to the result that India's war on red tape is working. It was before the war against COVID-19. India needs to come back to growth of its economic performance and to avoid hyperinflation and overburdening the national debt. The growth has to be bigger than the interest rate. In this situation, the question needs to be raised if there are still formal rules or standards which are either excessive, rigid, or even redundant. This question, and if answered with yes, should be addressed by politicians, not by the bureaucracy itself, because that tends to be comfortable with the procedures they are used to. Procedures are only a means to achieve some goal, not the goal in itself. What is requested specifically in this situation is an enabling administration. India is committed to put enormous funds in the recovery of its economy. I think 10% of the GDP, or a total of $266 billion US. But ladies and gentlemen, money is not all. The revival of the economy should not fail because of lacking or delayed permits required for that progress. So the financial stimuli provided by the government and its implementation by the private sector and the
The net issue, Shankar, with him? There's a net issue with Mr. Peter Rimmel. Pankaj, can you move ahead or you would like to wait? Move ahead. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have some technical issue with Mr. Peter Rimmel's net connectivity in New Delhi.
Right.
Virus has also impacted, looks like, our net connectivity. Now we'll move on. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all the viewers watching this program, all our WhatsApp members, people who are watching this program live on YouTube, Facebook, and also our webcast. And Mr. Veerappa Moily is there on the screen. He is representing from his son's mail ID. That's why Arsha Moily is the name on which Mr. Veerappa Moily is talking. Mr. Peter Rimmel, you have joined us back. You would like to complete your thing? May now
yes.
like to do that?
Yes, I'd like to and hope that I will not be interrupted again. So what I said last is that the financial stimuli provided by the government and its implementation by private sector and bureaucracy should go hand in hand, and altogether we'll have to find a way so that both lives and livelihoods can be saved. Maybe that situation can be a stimulus for further administrative reforms. Let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen. At the end, let me say this. Our political systems are grappling with more challenges than ever before. The German response is often not the fastest, which at times proves problematic. But historically, a very cautious approach to reform, especially when it comes to our institutions, has led to a very high trust in our political systems. And I think that's the case in India as well as in Germany. But it might very well be that the rapid changes of global phenomena like digitization, populism, and the ever-present coronavirus will require a faster pace. I thank the Madras Management Association and our other partners for our, as always, fruitful cooperation and this great opportunity in particular. I'm looking forward to an enlightening address by our esteemed speaker, and I'm of course curious as the points he will touch upon coming up now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Rimmel, for your introductory remark with the set the tone. And indeed, my proud privilege now to once again welcome our guest for this evening, Mr. Veerappa Moily. We are indeed blessed to have your presence, sir. Now, I will request Mr. Prime Point Srinivasan, who actually facilitated connecting us to Mr. Veerappa Moily. Just few lines about Mr. Prime Point Srinivasan. He is Prime Point, founder of Prime Point Foundation, published monthly e-magazine 3 cents, which is also a most important and prestigious Sansad Ratna Award, which I think is done that on the advice of Mr. former President APJ Abdul Kalam, and he's also author, digital journalist, social worker, and political analyst. Now I request Mr. Prime Point Srinivasan to please introduce our distinguished guest for this evening.
Thank you. I welcome Dr. Good evening, Dr. Moily Saab. And I'm delighted to welcome the legendary personality and the most loved person, Dr. Veerappa Moily. And many people would have known him because of his stature. He was the finance minister and the chief minister of Karnataka government when he was there. He is the person who was mainly responsible for making Bangalore as a Silicon Valley. And many people may not be remembering that. And he is the brain behind that. And then he moved on to Delhi. He served as a union minister in various ministries. And everywhere, wherever he worked, he made a mark of it, including corporate law and everything. It was his brainchild. And the last 16th Lok Sabha, he was the chairman of the Finance Commission. Sorry, it was a standing committee on finance. And as a standing committee on finance chairman, he made a mark on that. He presented more than 72 or 73 reports to the parliament. And we also presented him with the Sansad Ratna Award for this excellent performance in the committee. That was the first time we introduced an award for the committee, and he was getting it. And more than that, and leave alone, he was administrator, and he is an author. He is a literary person. He has written Ramayana in 42,000 lines. That is one of his greatest achievement in Kannada that is translated into many languages. And one more thing is that he was the chairman of Second Finance Commission, Administrative Reforms Commission. And whatever the recommendations he has made during his tenure as the chairman of Administrative Commission, still it is being implemented. And really, we are fortunate to have Dr. Veerappa Moily with us. And Sansad Ratna Award was set up 10 years ago. And the Next Gen Political Leaders is an offshoot of Sansad Ratna Awards to develop the knowledge and skills of young political leaders. And over to Dr. Veerappa Moily.
Thank you very much, Captain Vijay Kumar, Srinivasan, Mr. Peter, and all distinguished guests on the panel. Thank you for the opportunity provided to me to share this platform. It's a very important platform. At a crucial period like this, India is facing, we have to deliberate on, particularly on the governance. This is what, I was heading the second Administrative Reform Commission of Government of India. And we provided the 15 reports. One of the report is about this crisis, the disaster management, the crisis, the governance thereof. That's why the subject also interests me very well. In fact, overall strategy that the government has of the day will have to adopt to combat the present crisis, is manifold. First, we should have establish political consensus in a federal country like India. The good governance, not only by the government of India, various agencies, the various mechanisms, agencies, and also by the state governments. The socio-economic development, it has to go along with that. Respect for rule of law, successful countering of community spread, and appropriate legal framework coupled with the capacity building of the citizens. So I think it is the subject which you have chosen today is quite relevant. And what we find today that I don't think, there is a coordination, and particularly the emphasis on building the social capital is quite important and very crucial at this juncture. But what we find today is, all these components have not been put together. Just only, it's not just the business of the government of India or the Prime Minister or the Union Health Minister or a state chief minister to address these problems. I think the entire country will have to do that, for which, all these problems will have to be looked into. Now the lockdown, it appears to many of us that it has been chosen as the right and the focused attention, which is not correct. Lockdown is only a default measure. It's only a default measure, but default measure has been taken as a predominant measure. I think slowly the government of India is now realizing that that kind of an approach is not going to serve the purpose, and it cannot contain the problems, and it cannot really provide the holistic approach for the entire problem. So in view of that, we need to address that, and that address will have to be very much focused. And moreover, the institutional mechanisms will have to be strengthened at all levels. We need to involve the private sector. What we see today, that the deputy commissioners or the collectors of the district, they take control of everything. They think that they are the people who have to manage and rule. And ultimately, what happens to the private, even the private, more than 65% of the health sector is dominated by the private people, and which is not looked into. Only the government hospitals, the government mechanism, they are fully geared up, which is just not adequate. And we need to address the whole system will have to respond to the present problem. The government itself has to show that it is willing to cross over to a new way of governance, particularly during this crisis, which I have described it. We have illustrated number of instances in our chapter on particularly one report on the crisis management. Particularly as far as the health measures which will have to be taken and addressed is very important. That is why we propose that the emergency health measures will have to be taken, and for which an act has to be there. Ad hocism is prevailing everywhere. We feel today, some officer will feel, some experts will feel, some administrator will feel that this is better. No, that's not. We'll have to put in mechanism in an organized way so that the entire gamut of the problems could be addressed. That's why that health emergency bill which we have proposed with the UPA 1, in fact, brought the drafted a bill, and it was about to be placed before the Lok Sabha. Thereafter, when the NDA government, present government they came out with the bill again, emergency, health emergency bill, and that was again 2007. It was allowed to be lapsed. Perhaps the government will have to think of such measures, whatever form. UPA 2007, again the bill was brought by the NDA in a revised form, but that lapsed in 2017. UPA that has lapsed. No, even they renewed it, and again the NDA wanted to do it, but they did not do it. Perhaps the time has now come to address this issue, and we'll have to come out with a solution for that. And the very ad hocism will not ultimately serve the interest. That is why the present approach to this kind of a great crisis will have to be addressed squarely and holistically. Yes. No. 2007 UK. 2014 ನಮ್ಮ government ಹೋಯ್ತು. ಏನು 2017. ನಾನೇ ಬಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ.
Shankar, his audio is not coming in?
No.
சார் எதுவும் பேசல சார்.
பேசலையா? ஓகே.
ನಮ್ಮ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೂತಿಲ್ಲ PGG 2017 PGG 2017 ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಬಂದದ್ದು. Arsha, any technical issue? You need any help, sir?
No, we are okay.
No, we are okay.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Sure. Perfect, sir.
Should I continue?
Please, sir.
Yes. Here it is not a question of one state dealing with the question or the one nation dealing with that. It's a global question. I may kindly recall here that the World Conference on Natural Disaster Reduction held out at Oklahoma in 1924 set out the strategy to meet with such a crisis. Since COVID-19 has spread all over the world, it is high time global conference of the kind is held to take stock of this grave situation and work out a strategy and plan of action for a safer world. I think one such conference is necessary world over because it's a global question. One country dealing with the situation will not resolve the problem at all, and in exclusion of the other countries. So this is again a question which has not been properly addressed. There are 4 pillars, namely the policy institution framework, technical matrix, and financial regime. We should ideally work in synergy towards managing the crisis. The blanket, lockdown, which I have already referred to, the country or in a given state is only a desperate strategy. It's not a very positive, assertive, objective strategy at all. A country of 130 crore cannot afford the kind of crude lockdown. That's why slowly we are realizing that maybe default, and now we need to work on that, both economic packages and also to meet with this question of COVID-19. Country needs immediate succor for in hunger. We ultimately more than out of 130 crores of the population, more than 40 crores of people are now suffering. Maybe they may be turned into beggars if the question is not properly addressed. This is the major issue which we need to. They have to provide hunger. You have to provide for hunger, provide for shelter, and the jobs. The need of the hour is universal testing and COVID-19 providing equipments, testing kits, the mobilizing professionals, biologists, scientists, and researchers. I don't think the solution or the vaccine is definitely not in sight for another couple of months. Till that time, how do you continue that? How do you meet with the situation like this. We'd have to spend money to detect, control, treat, rehabilitate with basic facilities. Health spending must happen regardless from where it comes from. But but the government alone cannot tackle this issue. We can't expect the government to tackle this issue. The entire health sector will have to be mobilized, for which we require a lot of money. The migration has become the real problem today. People are on the street. They are dying on the streets. And the government has to take over this responsibility. You can't just leave to them, you purchase ticket and travel. Or, even with regard to the patients are concerned, they land in a particular place and then, they are sent for, they are detained and they are asked to look after themselves, that they have to pay the hotel bills or other things. It can't happen at that time. It has to be the government responsibility. Government has to mobilize the funds for that. I don't think, this can be, half-hearted approach. This could be on the war footing. It is another third world war, I must tell you that, in a different format. So one has to meet with this contingency, how to do that. You can't just ask the people to manage yourself, discipline yourself. Ultimately, it may turn out to be a real crisis in rule of law, or the law and order. Government should protect its citizens. That is their responsibility. From the economic impact of this global pandemic, people who are affected should not lose their livelihood. They are losing it. It has to be, addressed. The packages which are given today also, yesterday Prime Minister announced the 10% of the 10% of the GDP. Or, they say that it is 15% of the GDP, 20 lakhs and all. I don't think it is just enough. I think that those components are not just adequate to meet with the present crisis. And war cannot be fought, just because there is no money. Money will have to be found out from wherever it is possible, and not mobilize the people to fund this great crisis. In the war time, even the people are mobilized to provide and provide necessary things. So there is a direct loss of 15 lakh crore due to the present lockdown. Maybe it must have come up now in 20 lakh crore. And just you'll have to find the remedy for it. And that is how this has to be met like a warlike situation. The governance is an important problem. It is a challenge for the governance of all aspects. All functionaries will have to be mobilized, and it can't be just fed only by the government machinery. This is what we now find, that the focus is only on the government, this thing. So the state governments, where do they find the fund? They are not in a position to do that. GST, mobilization is not done now. States are short of funds because we have brought a GST by which the government of India will have to take the responsibility, send the funds to the government, state governments. There are channels of resources. The funding the resources is very difficult. I think the whole system will have to be revamped and addressed and focused. Otherwise, we can't meet with this kind of a present crisis. We say absolutely just like a third world war. Where otherwise, the people will be near. Even after lifting the lockdown, after the pandemic, it's not likely to stop. It's picking up every day. And this may continue for some more months. How do you meet with the situation? How do you sustain the jobs? How do you provide them for the hunger? How do you provide for the migrate? People who are migrating, they do not find the shelter, food, wages in the place of their work. That is why they are migrating. We are not addressing that question. Unless you address, either you contain in the respective states where they are working, or provide them proper migration. You can't put them in between. So these are all the problems which we need to, the country has to focus, people have to focus, social capital will have to be re-energized, and and the governance can't be confined only to the government itself, but it has to address to all bodies of the government, all agencies, and the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You set the tone. You really brought in so many issues. So we are going to have lots of questions from the people, which I will share with you. And you put in the machine in an organized way. The people are tricked. Health emergency bill is a requirement which you want to be done, and more global conferences to be done on brainstorming so that the global issues are solved amicably by all the countries put together. Then also, as a government alone cannot tackle. You need private contribution in a big way to tackle the issues. Migrant labor, you all know, you also brought out, which is a serious issue, and how to mobilize funds. You wanted to mobilize funds on war footing, we do it during war. I think similar thing has to be done to meet the contingency, which has arisen, and where you raise the fund. And also, you said fund for the state. The number of issues which you brought out, which is very thought-provoking. Now, I will read out the questions as it comes to me, sir, and I will request you to kindly think. The first question has come from Mr. Shivaraman, former Revenue Secretary. His question to you, sir. Sir, why could you not implement the reforms that you planned for the judiciary despite your party being in power for 10 years? Your comment on this, sir.
Yeah, there are questions of the judicial reforms, the questions of the administrative reforms. And in fact, both the EPA 1 and 2, they constituted GOM to implement so many of the recommendations, and they are all in the various processes. As you know very well, the reform face bureaucracies against it. Bureaucracies, first of all, they are not prepared to change the status quo. We have to break that first. This is what we found, many of the GOMs when we wanted to address and implement it. I don't say all the bureaucracy, but a part of the bureaucracy, a section of bureaucracy, they just want to obstruct. With all that, some of the reforms have been implemented, both in the judiciary and also in the administrative side.
Thank you. He also further added, sir, Mr. Shivaraman, he says, then as a revenue secretary started against the powerful people under the FERA based on affidavits sworn by the solicitors of the accused in London court, and other documents are still lying in subordinate courts in spite of order by higher courts. Our judges may be good, but our judicial system is still not really doing what is to be done and favors the rich and powerful, who can use it through very highly paid lawyers to postpone indefinitely action against them, sir. Do you have any views to offer on this comment?
We have brought in national litigation policy, just because we studied, I had sent a team of the judges and also for the professionals in the department and also outside the department to Singapore. That Singapore system once in 1991, that was in a mess. The judiciary is in a mess. And, nothing used to move. But, it's an example. In Singapore is an example where the judiciary not only reformed themselves, but also led the reform in the governance. I think that is the model which I have brought about, and governance, it is a work in progress. I don't think, overnight it can be done.
Thank you. There's a question from one of our viewers from YouTube. What are the lessons learned from COVID crisis in terms of administration handling of the emerging situations?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because ultimately, I think I refer to that. You can't just allow the bureaucracy to deal with it as a whole. Or the police to deal with that. That is how it looks everywhere. And even this data which is collected, is very defective. It's not flawless. Even today, I don't think one can say specifically that what is the detection of the disease, how many positive, how many negative. Ultimately, what is the level of percentage of testing? The testing is can't be done very selectively by our officers. They want to keep the figures down. Sometime, it is a prestige for them to show that we are all in the green area, not in the red area. To facilitate that many a time, it is not properly done. I have seen some of the district, they want to keep that zone as a, the green zone. Consequently, the statistic data is not properly selected. That is the basic thing. Are we doing that? Why don't you mobilize a mechanism? That is why I said adultism is not going to serve the purpose. I think the bill which I proposed and which was there, even the NDA thought of it, 2017. I think they have to rethink on that so that everything can work on objectively, not in an ad hoc approach. Allow only the taluk magistrate or a district magistrate or the police commissioner or the police the sub-inspector deal with this. This is why now it is confined to them. This has to be changed. That should be. Now, suppose you want to punish some people, take revenge on some people. I remember in one of the very important the medical research institute, because of the extraneous reasons that has been locked down. The entire factory has been locked down. I remember, there's an instance just because there was somebody belonging to some other religion. And he was involved. And, this is how the approach is made. I think we should have an objective thing and the standards will have to be laid down for the testing and also for the detention and also put them on the quarantine. Now it is just done ad hoc. There is no basic standards laid down.
Thank you, sir. So you have been part of Administrative Reforms Commission when you were in the government and done some phenomenal work in that field.
Chairman of that.
Yes, the chairman of the thing. In that regard, sir, from your experience, is there a case for restructuring the administration of the center and the state, seeing the present situations?
Yeah, it's one thing, the crisis like this, how to, revitalize the administration, how to I think many of the suggestions have been there in that crisis management chapter. So I think the governance, this is just like a meet with the war situation. There should be governance of a very different type. This is what, now we run it in a normal way. You can't treat it as a normal way. It has to be on an emergency basis. For which, I gave a number of recommendations. Maybe the administration can look into this.
Good, sir. Quite interesting, sir. There's another question from one of our Facebook viewers. He says, will you advise a freeze on recruitment and increments until the economy improves? What will be the impact if the government can take such a decision at this junctures, which is many organizations have done it?
Yeah, this is all, the off-the-cuff remarks. I don't think these are all the solutions for this. Further situation will be deteriorated. I don't think that's a solution. That is, in a situation like this, where we have to provide them the livelihood, the employment. You can't take away some of these things. How do they live? Because we do not know. There is no certainty how many months it will last. You can't create chaos and uncertainty for the people. People will have to, if that is so, that will be an additional problem. That is an additional crisis.
Excellent, sir. There's a question from our own Prime Point, Srinivasan. You want to know, nowadays there is a talk about bringing health under concurrent list. What's your view on this?
The provision is, it is already there in the concurrent list. Registrations have been made by the Government of India also, Parliament. And, this bill which I have proposed, which they have presented before the Parliament, that means it's possible. It is possible to manage it. That bill can be brought and, administration. That doesn't mean that the whole thing will have to be taken over by the Government of India. It has to be dealt by all agencies, mechanisms. So to put the system in place is the only solution. Not, just overnight you think about things, something strikes to you, or some Jyotishi or astrologer tells you, you announce this and do this. I don't think, the country can be run like this.
Great, sir. In continuing, there's another question, sir, from our viewer that in politics and constitutional terms, is the centralized handling of decision making, even on subjects like healthcare and education, sustainable and advisable under present circumstances?
Definitely not. I don't think the government of India, what can they do? The authorities to implement are in the state government or in the local governance. The system can't be disrupted like this. I don't think the systems can be told. The governance system cannot be taken over, should not be taken over. Strengthen its basic policy objective will have to be laid down. Who should perform, how they should perform, what is the mechanism, and provide them the necessary funds. Of course, necessary fund will have to be mobilized. That is a must. You can't just give they ask the local bodies or the government. Local bodies will have to play a very great role, which is now just forgotten. They can play a better role, more effective role. I think we have to address this in a most decentralized way, not in a centralized way.
Excellent. So there's a question from Nilendra Kumar, again, something similar to what you addressed earlier. Maybe a little more you want to know. What administrative reforms are needed in the context of union government and the state governments harboring different ideas to combat coronavirus? There's always a conflict of issues and political issues.
Question of different ideology. There's no ideology involved. The question of the governance, the approach. And of course, you'll have to, I think, the more functions will have to be entrusted to the state governments. They have everything to do, not the government of India. They will have to be helpful and facilitate the state government and the local boards to function. If you don't allow them to function, to function, you'll have to give the mechanism, objective standards will have to be laid down, and the appropriate funding arrangement will have to be done. And unless that also doesn't go with that, there is no point you do that. Now, only direction is given by the government of India, and the state governments and the local boards are helpless.
Excellent, sir. There's a question from one of our viewers. He says, so you talked about a global meet that is required. How do you see the role of WHO so far the handling the crisis, particularly in view of the criticism by USA? What does it mean to the whole world, sir?
What Donald Trump has said about the WHO. And I don't think, WHO is a very, is an agency in a very general way. I don't think, they can focus on this. This is a question faced by many states, many countries. They'll have to put their head together. I don't think, WHO is a forum which can effectively tackle this. That's a conference like this. We'll definitely address this question because it is a global question. COVID-19 is a global question. And this requires the global solutions, both on the research and finding the vaccines and also dealing with things. Because from state, ultimately what is happening? From country to country, it is migrating. The disease is migrating. Unstoppable. It requires unified action by all those countries which are affected by COVID-19. I don't think, till today, WHO could address this. They are not addressed and focused these things. I don't think, WHO, they can just, as a bigger platform, they can just address. But, it has to be focused and it has to be discussed, governance solutions, and ultimately to combat the COVID-19, I think they will have to, these nations were all confronted with this question. We'll have to focus and address.
So in continuum, do you think the role of India will really enhance with India going to be part of the WHO soon on the board, sir? What is your view on that? Do you think the whole thing will change with India on board, sir?
No, it is not a question of India or any other country coming on board. The question is that it's a very specific program. Specific disease, spread over to some of the countries. These countries will have to put, for that, a global conference of the type which I have suggested may definitely find some solution.
There's a question from OR of Mr. Satyamurthy, sir. So where do we fit in the local governments or the panchayat in the emerging situation, and how, if I think some of the states, especially I can quote Kerala, has done some phenomenal work because the grassroots level politics which could enable them to tackle. So what's your view on this actually?
No, you are right. Kerala has done this, focused this. And NIFA, how they tackled it, it is really a big model for every state. And, they mobilized even the local bodies. This is what we should do it. Fortunately or unfortunately, now this COVID-19, we all think that it is focused in the towns and cities. It is now spreading to the rural area. Rural area, unless the local boards come out, they are equipped, they are empowered to meet with the situation, I don't think you can effectively handle this. Such a big country like this, 130 crore population, sitting at Delhi, you can't frame the rules, standards, lay down the standards. It has to be tackled by, on the first hand by the local boards. Even the municipalities and the corporations, they are not handling it properly. Again, the state governments have taken over everything. I think somewhere, the very thinking is narrowed down, short-sighted, and the approach is not focused. And we need to address this.
Very important, sir. In continuing on the same subject, they also want to know, in this, how do you think the powers of the Panchayat under the 74th and 75th Amendment can be enforced effectively?
No, because we have addressed these questions. In fact, in the 73rd and 74th amendment to the Constitution, they have empowered this. In fact, more powers have been given to the Panchayats than to the higher bodies like the Taluk Panchayats or the district Panchayats. All powers, even the state government powers have been already given. It is only sometime we mischievously take over their power and, MLAs and the state level, the state governments take over that. Their power is already there. You'll have to empower them with the appropriate funding.
There's a question from Mr. Viswanathan. He was requesting, as a veteran administrator and who has done phenomenal work while you were in the government as a chief minister, as a union minister, what will be your top 5 concrete action that you want the PM to implement in these scenarios?
Number 1, you'll have to come out with a bill, which emergency bill, to meet with this, where all these criteria will have to be laid down. The attribute, the various functionaries, their duties, and will have to be specified. This is the first thing to be done. Number 2, instead of, you can just send the guidelines. Rightly said Mr. Peter that, the health ministry can send the guidelines, the union health ministry. But ultimately, it has to be, so empower the state governments. In turn, they empower the local boards to tackle this problem. Then the testing will have to be done universally. It's not pick and choose. Now testing is not done. Even they did, I think many of the state governments are, discouraging testing because they will be exposed. They think that, their performance will be questioned tomorrow. Testing, will have to be done. There should not be any fear in the mind of the people, if the testing is done, they are detained and, they are put in the quarantine, and all this fear will have to go. And that fearlessness among the citizens will have to be, citizens will have to be properly, guided and, I think a proper health literacy will have to be spread, widespread. Then you'll have to tackle the migrant labor. Either provide them the food, shelter, and the jobs in the respective states where they are today, or allow the free migration. That has to be funded by the government, either by the state government or the central government. We are not addressing that question.
Thank you, sir. In relevant to one of the questions, one of the thing which you suggested is a question relevant to that. You have been one of the most successful chief ministers of the country ever seen, sir. Do you think the state government should have handled the migrant crisis in a better manner? What's your view on this?
No, the migration question has become a nobody's baby. Nobody's baby. They are orphaned. The state, they think that, they do not belong to them. In a country like this, what kind of integration, principle of integration we are practicing. And, they are said, you fund yourself. They are stranded in various places. No food is provided. No shelter is provided. And, they have been totally orphaned. They are on the streets. They have become destitute. A citizen cannot be treated as a destitute in a democratic country like this. I think the state will have to own the responsibility. Whatever the support, the package they want, the government of India will have to provide. Unfortunately, in all these packages, the package for the migrant labor is not properly focused. You have to address that.
Super, sir. In continuum of the same package and migrant labor, Siddharth wants to know, sir, what are the policy changes you recommend post-COVID-19 phase, and will the 20 lakh crore stimulus be an effective answer to the issues?
I don't think, the 20 lakhs or even the earlier packages, they are not focused on the migrant labor. They think that the problem doesn't exist at all. There's a very serious problem today. And whatever the packages, that has to address to retain them in their respective workplaces. The owners of the factories, the employers, they disown them. State government, they disown them. Government of India doesn't address their problem. So I think they have to come out with another package solely focusing on migrant labor. It has to be tackled. Crores of people cannot be just neglected.
Excellent input.
You can't convert people, citizens of the country, into beggars on the streets.
Very strong and excellent input, sir. There is also a question from one of our webcast viewer. He says, in your talk, you suggested that 10 to 15% of the GDP as a package may not be an adequate in such situations. What, in your opinion, should be ideal package? And could you also suggest how the central government and state government can generate more funds given the current state of economies?
Yeah, they can. They will have to generate fund or borrow money, and ultimately, the fund should not be a question at all. In a warlike situation, the soldiers cannot be just left in lurch, left in the street, and the helpless. They have to be equipped. They have to be armed properly, empowered properly to keep on the fight, which we don't find. We see that only some health workers or the doctors. They are our warriors, warriors without any weapons with them, warriors without any proper, packages. So I think they will have to address that. These packages which are given, of course, they are welcome, but they will have to focus on some basic issues like this. And if they don't work, address these basic issues and also fix up the responsibility with the various agencies. They are not basically testing will have to be done universal. It cannot be done, sparingly, or the discretion cannot be given only to those bureaucrats.
Thanks. In the context of migrant labor, is a question. He said, do you think we need national migrant policy in order to prevent the migrant crisis issue, or you need a policy where the people come and what are the rights and responsibilities of the guest worker state, how to handle such a situation in future, because we learned a lesson through these issues.
You're right. This is a national issue. It's not a mere local issue or a state issue. It is a national issue. Unless there is a national approach, and that's why I said that Health Act, Emergency Act, in a situation like this, I know maybe that can also provide some solution, to this. Migration is a national problem. It's not just confined to a factory owner. Now they think that factory owner will look after everything. He can't do that. He cannot raise any resources because, he is helpless because his factory is closed. There is no production coming. How do you expect him to keep on, feeding him with wages? And of course, we expect that's an ideal thing if the employer can afford to do that, which I don't think, you can expect to do that. I think there should be a national fund created just to look after only the migrant.
Excellent, sir. So there's also another question, interesting question from our viewer from YouTube. The current crisis provide several opportunities for reforms, the parliamentary system and the tools in the country, and also the election reforms. Do you think it's the right time to look into this, revisit them, and implement these reforms?
The election, I don't think that is an issue now. The issue is only with regard to addressing the problem of COVID-19, the impact on the people, and the infrastructure to be created, mechanism to meet with them. And also, I don't think there is a focus, each country will have to focus on finding some medicine or the vaccine, which I don't think, that's a national focus on that. We are just forgetting about that. Maybe, I don't know, who is doing this, there's some hopes held out to the people that, this is possible to find out. We have scientists, we have technology these days. And I was told that Israel has done something. You can't just leave to Israel to do that. Let them do it. But even in our country, I think you should pull the scientists and tell them, give them the target and say that, you'll have to find some solution. I don't think it is impossible. Unlike, unlike previous days, we never used to have proper researchers and scientists. Now, I don't think, we lack researchers and scientists. They have to be focused and mobilized.
Great, sir. I have another 5 minutes. I'll squeeze in as many questions as possible with your permission, sir.
Welcome.
The COVID-19 pandemic may throw up new leaders in India federal structure, and how COVID-19 is changing the Indian politics, sir, because the politicians become real decision-making to save the country. Your views on that, sir?
I don't think, any politician should play politics in this. That is why I said the political consensus is necessary. All the political parties, will have to mobilize themselves as one person to address the question of COVID-19, which is not done now. And he should be a patriot, not a politician. I think all politicians will have to convert themselves into the patriots to deal with this question. That is what is necessary.
Great, sir. There's a question from Siddharth again. Should RBI sell its crores of assets during this time for the financial help, PM Care Fund or the GST audit, in your view on this, sir?
Yeah, the funds have been mobilized under PM CARES. And there is a PM Relief Fund. They have to be objectively managed. Who should manage this fund is a question. Should it be, given to the few hands, or, there should be an objective way of dealing with this. Then, the PM CARES will get a lot of credibility. Like war fund, it can be mobilized. But there is no seriousness in it. While creating that fund, a lot of credibility will have to be built around that. People will have to get an impression that, this will be utilized for this. And we need to address that question. And that is how the mobilization will be more. Somewhere, mobilization has stopped. After the creation of the fund, you don't hear much about it. People are not mobilized. People used to give their jewels, this, that. That is why, sense of patriotism to meet with the COVID situation is inevitable. That has to be triggered.
Thank you, sir. There's a question from Mr. Dr. Gopal, the professor of computer science from Anna University. Sir, do you think the special operations procedure will be needed for railways? Lockdown 4 fades away. Version like aerial signal support and much more artificial intelligence come in the way of, tackling with the issues. Actually.
You are right. I think it's an excellent suggestion. Now, I think we are meeting just like a normal situation, just like treating our passengers, earlier passengers. No, there should be quite a different approach, and that has to be worked out. And people will have to come out with better solutions to provide that kind of both in the buses and also in the trains, and also flights.
Great, sir. Now we have got our co-partners, some of them there. Maybe I'll request them, Mr. Peter, Pankaj, Satyamurthy, would like to ask any question to the Honorable our Mr. Veerappa Moily before we let him go, sir. Yes, Mr.
No, thank you. Thank you, sir. No, thank you.
Okay. Pankaj, you got any questions? Yes, please. Please go ahead. You unmute yourself, please. No questions, sir. Mr. Peter?
Okay.
Okay.
No. I have I want to have a comment.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Dr. Moily, great evening and thank you very much for super knowledgeable inputs for our knowledge. And could I ask you that you, with your background of being an energy minister in the central government, what would you say to the crashing of energy prices internationally, but nothing happens in India?
Yeah, it's a big crisis in the international, but we feel that there is no crisis at all because ultimately the prices have not come down at all. Same, petroleum or diesel, the same price which I was, during my period, the international price was at the peakest. That's the peak. And same level of prices even prevail in our country because we put a lot of state governments or the government of Indian government, they put a lot of central excise, a lot of surcharges, many things. I think some of the, we are so insensitive on the international situations. When the prices are down, I had adopted a policy. When the crude policies are down, and that has to be passed over to the consumers automatically in India. That was the policy which I adopted, and I practiced that also. But now, the benefits of the price reduction has not been passed over to the consumers or to the country. That is most unfortunate. You can't deal with the situation like this.
Thank you, sir, being with us this evening. Your thought-provoking insight has really kindled the thought process of many of us. And thank you for sparing your valuable time. And I must thank you. And in particular, I would like to thank Arsha for being with us. We have been troubling him for the last
I'm utilizing his facility.
Yes. And you have become really technical master in handling Zoom. I think you have to come more often to open Zoom, because we'll invite you over to share your insight in future too, sir. And thank you so much, Mr. Peter, for delivering the interview.
I can retire now, isn't it? Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much, sir. And stay safe, and really a pleasure and great privilege and honor having you with us.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Nice, sir. Gentlemen, those who are online, please share your appreciation on your screen through the screen reaction mode. Your applause. Thank you so much. It's a great evening we all had. And as an appreciation of our support to Mr. Veerappa Moily, please show your appreciation by clapping on your screen.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan. Thank you, Mr. Satyamurthy. Great evening. And till we meet again, bye-bye, and stay safe, and good night, sir. Bye-bye, sir.